Good morning, Breakfast Clubbers.
Good morning.
All right, how many of you are new? Acapella, here we go. Ready? Got your card? You guys first. All right, we're just going to do Hail, Hail, the gang's all here. Because tradition, Arizona Breakfast Club has been around for 40 years. Since the late 60s. This has been going on a long time. If you didn't go to Breakfast Club, you didn't know what was going on. And then the internet came, and then you still wanted to know what the people looked like. So we had the Breakfast Club. Hail, hail, the gang's all here. Morning breakfast clubbers, morning breakfast clubbers. Chow, 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 you all want chow. That is what we're here for now. All right, there, we got that out of the way. Or the, food goes bad or something. Okay, we want to get a bunch of announcements. You guys can hear me without this, right? Yeah. Or do you need me amplified? No. What we're going to do is I want to get through some a lot of things have been going on, so we want to get through a lot of this real quick, and then we'll get to, what's the name of that town? Quartzsite. I did Joyce Riley's show a few days ago, right when I got back from my trip, and I've been gone for almost all of July, and good, because it was hot. I came back, I'm like, oh my goodness, man. Heck, it wasn't this hot anywhere I was, and that's the temperature of the pool, So what we're going to go ahead and do is I wanted to get caught up on a lot of things, and if you listen to the radio show, you can kind of get a lot of that, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it here, what I've been doing the last month. But I did do Joyce Riley's show, The Power Hour, and they had Richard Oldham, is that his name? Is the mayor, the first mayor, that the second mayor tried to put a hit out on, that went to jail for trying to kill him. That went, so this has been going on a long time, So he was on Joyce Riley's show kind of talking about that. And my thing, I took the opportunity to give a much larger history that what's going on now, has started a long time ago, and I don't think the people in Quartzsite understand what they're really up against. So this is a learning, just to get them to ask the right questions of the right people. Because sooner or later, I don't care if you're elected mayor or you're a town, what doesn't matter. And you're starting to find out that elected positions at a local town and county levels don't mean squat. There's a town manager. There's a prosecutor. There's a law enforcement right to take a guy with a gun. There's the judges and so on. And they're starting to come up against that. This is why libertarians are so much against, organized government as much as I'm against organized religion. It never represents what they say it does. We have the shirts. Nick has some. I should have brought one. And it says, "Government doesn't work. I want my money back." Okay, but it has a graph on it. And imagine this. It has this line that goes straight up like this, and it says, "Government promises." Then it has here from when the Constitution started, and it has this jagged line and different things like we have the Civil War, we have the Federal Reserve and IRS and 9/11 and individual liberties, and boom, and it drops off. Sooner or later, the gap between what is promised and what is reality gets so wide that people lose all faith in government because their promises are so far out of whack with what they actually deliver. Our state constitution is very clear. We had Ron Gould, Senator Ron Gould came on, and I was stuck in Washington State, so Barry interviewed him. Of course, I'd love to have had my woo, but so he interviewed him, and basically what you got out of Ron was this. Yeah, it's very bad. Yeah, I wouldn't have any problem with them unincorporating. Yeah, they're, moved to the top of the list of DPS, and we're going to go get them, and yeah, but, there's really not anything we can do. And I go, then what the hell good are you? FYI, man, that's my question, I just want to know, what the hell good are you? Because the state constitution is very clear, as I think the federal is too, but certainly the Constitution. Article 2 is the Declaration of Rights. And 1 and 2, it just basically says this. This is about what it says. I can pull it up, and it says, the purpose of government is the defense of individual rights. Now, where that came from was the Declaration of Independence. You know, the purpose of government is to defend individual rights. If it ceases to do that, it's time, you know, to cast them off and find new people. It's your right, it's your duty. So you always look, I look at government in a simple way. You know, the guy with the gun that's taking people from microphones, the guy that's sitting there in the council having them disarm political opposition, these people are supposed to be there to defend those very rights, and they're the ones taking them away. Yep. So I'm going, and there's a resistance to just do away with this? Just unincorporate. You want to find out who the bad guys are? They're going to be the guys saying, no, 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 no. We need you in our power. Okay? So we'll talk about that a little bit, not give my spiel, but when I was talking to Joyce Riley, I wanted to give this little background because I know where a lot of this power comes from. It goes all the way up, United Nations stuff, we rule you, planet biodiversity, sustainable growth, Agenda 21, blah, 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 blah. Because we went through this with Apache Junction in the mid-90s. There's a guy named Bob Cantoni. A lot of you guys have been around a while. Remember him. Quartzsite and Apache Junction are like carbon copies of each other. This is what happened. I'm going to share this with you. Okay, give me 5 minutes. I'm going to share this with you so you kind of get a background of what, you know, why I'm interested in Quartzsite. Because Joyce Riley asked me that. You're in Phoenix. What the hell do you care about Quartzsite? And I go, oh, because it's so representative. There is, I bring this up on my show a lot as an example. When you have a full glass mirrored hologram, now Tom, some of you brainiacs can explain this to me, but you have a whole 3D hologram. Statue of Liberty is right there. You smash that and you take the bottom right-hand corner of it, you'd think it'd be the bottom right-hand corner of it. No, it's a miniature version of the whole thing. It retains the whole information, why it's signed and stuff. But the point is, if you look at a small area, if you look at Quartzsite and you dissect it down into all the powers, you get a perfect carbon copy view of what it's like on a worldwide level. It's the same thing, written small. Or you go to the United Nations, you understand politics in Quartzsite, guess what? International government, exactly the same thing, okay? There's all, but it's broken down easier. In Quartzsite, you have the guy with the gun and writes the tickets. You have and puts them in jail. You have the guy, you know, or girl or whatever that sits there and judges, yes, you did, that was a good thing you did. Boom, down with the rights of the people. Then you have the administrators and the bureaucrats and the zone enforcement people and the town manager, and they kind of orchestrate the whole thing, and they do surveys and have lines and jurisdictions and, you know, blah, 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 blah. Same exact thing. This is what happened. I was talking to Joyce about, and the bottom line we found out with Apache Junction, the John Birch Society freaked out when they were trying to get the last few states to get a constitutional, Article 5 constitutional convention. This was a big deal in the early 90s. Well, it's starting to raise up again, and this whole debt ceiling thing is going to be covered for this. If we only, you'll hear, I bet you before the 2012 election cycle, if we only had a constitutional convention, we could fix everything. Well, that's how we got the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation to begin with. And when they had all this power, tax, eminent domain, commerce, all that stuff, the naysayers, the libertarians of the day, the anti-federalists, and Thomas Paine's and Patrick Henry's and Jefferson saying, oh, hell no. And they go, well, yeah, we're going to, and we got money, and we're central banks. Well, Rhode Island said, we ain't doing it. They didn't sign. A lot of people don't know that. They boycotted them. They forced Rhode Island into the Union. Well, they knew what was going on. They said, we don't want to play that. You're going to get a central command, might as well call him king. Well, we got checks and balances. Executive, legislative, judicial. Yeah, well, what happens, this is what Patrick Henry said. He goes, what happens when you put all three lined up against the rights of the individual, then what? Find yourself in a free speech zone. That's what happens. Okay? So we're looking at this as understanding that if you open up the convention, they're going to get whatever you want. The Ford Foundation in the 70s, when Nelson Rockefeller was president of the Senate and U.S. Congress, they came up with this thing called the Constitution for the New States of America. And in there, it was in line with all this UN stuff. And it was, you know, privileges granted by government. And, you know, they kind of want to take away the guns and all this other stuff. So this has been going on a long time. Well, Aaron Russo, that did Freedom to Fashion, did an interview with Alex Jones where he talked about his friendship with David Rockefeller. And David Rockefeller confirmed a bunch of this stuff, what they've been trying to do all this time. Equal Rights Amendment, that got them a lot of states saying we need a constitutional convention to decide that and get off our case. The Equal Rights Amendment was to bring the women into the workforce so they can be taxed, get them out of the house so the government becomes mom and dad to the kids in the public school. It's that simple. They have to get this mind. So what happens? Your first grade, they're not getting enough indoctrination. People are going on with the program, man. These damn kids, this freedom thing, what the heck? So of course they change the history and so on, but they need to get young. So they go to kindergarten, which is a German word, it's, gee, I wonder where they got that from. So they get, here they come in with kindergarten. Need to get them younger. Yeah, we're going to tell you what's what. I write a book. Everything I need to know I learned in kindergarten. You don't punch, you don't steal, you don't this, you don't that, and be good, and golden rule. So that's not enough. So here comes Janet Napolitano, that happens to be head of the Gestapo now, okay? So she comes in, what was her number one thing? Have to have preschool, remember? Government funded down to 3 years old, man, we gotta get them. These damn kids are learning freedom somewhere, damn it. The internet. They didn't see that one coming. They saw it as a control grid, and they didn't know that we were going to spike them back, okay? So this whole thing has been a battle that's been going on for a long time. As an activist, a young man, these revolutionaries that you see, the Ron Paul thing going on the last 4 years, I was them in the 88, early 90s, and me and my friends and so on, and a lot of you, we've grown up together just asking the same questions. What the hell is going on? Who's doing this? Why are they doing it? What's the end game? Blah, 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 blah. Then here comes Alex Jones and does his thing and so on. And are you scared enough yet? So, fine, some people need to be scared, whatever. So the point is that I'm going, all right. In 92, they did this, whatever the heck it was, United Nations Agenda 21, Sustainable Development, and where do they put it? Well, they needed to put it in, they wanted to not be too obvious, but they wanted to be able to get hold of a lot of things, and it was under on the county level. They wanted to get a county level of bureaucracy and government that they could control, because the counties are political subdivisions of the state. And it all you need is a little bit of legislation from the state saying that the county can do whatever the heck they want. Where did we see this before? It's called a case that the continuing study of the attorneys, people call me all the time, say, that was you? Hancock versus McCarroll. McCarroll was the county clerk of Maricopa County, and we challenged how they were funding and building the baseball stadium. Because when they did that, it was just a big, giant corporate welfare thing that was unconstitutional as hell. But they created this mindset that they can create these different organs of the stadium district, and they never are susceptible to initiative, referendum, no elected officials, no nothing. And when in 1995, I think it was, 96, there was an election at county level that the John Birch Society came to us, and we used our printing press, that old AB Dick 360, and we printed up a bunch of these flyers, and we defeated that 49 to 51% for this regional government that was part of this implementation of this Agenda 21 thing. They didn't waste any time. I mean, they were right on it, and they introduced this stuff all over the country. But they didn't stop. That's where MAG came from, Maricopa Association of Governments, and the light rail, and the billions of dollars in that. They were never going to go away. They're never going away, okay? I just want to make sure La Paz knows, you guys, they're never going away. You create the mechanism for them to get their tentacles in. You just said, come on in, well, they did. And they're not going away. So what we did is we said, all right, we understand how they did it. I understand why, I understand who's behind it. But what's the mechanism? Well, the John Birch, the flyer that they had done, and it was just like a fold paper like this. We did this 4-page flyer. And in there it had, the address of a building in Chicago, of all places. And it had multiple addresses. It was on a block where it had multiple addresses. Well, in there was the, fraternal order of and the Association of City Managers, and the Consortium of Town Prosecutors, and the blah, 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 whatever. These were the hiring list of the people that were on board with this agenda that would come from this one place out across America and do what they're doing at a county level. Now, we found it, it's a long story, we found it happening in Apache Junction. Where did these people come from? They came from other small towns, they came from this, with the program, you don't ever think that you get into these positions of power without support from up there, whoever there is. And whatever their plan is, I guarantee it ain't your plan, okay? It's their plan. And how you want to use your land, or how you want to use your water, or how close you want to be to the road, or if it's not part of their plan, Well, the people that it's not part of, they know who to contact and use and whatever, and they're out there writing you a ticket. It is to get rid of dissent. It's gotten so bad, and Jennifer will tell you some, what's happened to her and so on, but I'll tell you, it's gotten bad enough that two things happened. Joyce asked why we were so involved. Well, one, we knew it was coming. I just kind of, I'll just check every year or two, I know it's coming. Years ago, Big John, some of you guys may have met him, really big guy John, he has a newspaper out there in Quartzsite called whatever it is.
Desert Star.
The Desert Star?
The Desert Star.
The Desert Star. The Desert Star, and he kind of published, my radio being on when I was here in the Valley and Freedom Phoenix. He puts little stuff in there every now and then. And he was always covering a lot of the local stuff that happens in Quartzsite. Well, one of the things is that they go, oh, you're not allowed to do that. So they passed an ordinance saying, you must get a permission slip to run a newspaper in Quartzsite. And oh, guess what? We don't give you permission. Well, he calls me and I said, you just love when they do this stuff. The Goldwater Institute took it on. Goldwater Institute goes in, they file suit, boom, they win. Okay? But what did it show? No regard for First Amendment. They go, heck no. I mean, what's the next thing you're going to do? Ban web pages? I mean, if they could, they would. So then you got the First Amendment. Goes down. Then Jennifer gets dragged off, so that's obvious. The other thing was, I go, okay. Joe Wilson, one of the councilmen, and I wish I had it in front of me. I got Winslow, just going, this is amazing. You can't make this stuff up. He goes like this. This other guy named Roth is a political dissenter, a businessman there. He doesn't like him for whatever reason. He goes to the local judge and says, because he's retired Army, 25, 35 years or whatever. I have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress syndrome. And I don't know what I'm going to do if this guy gets in my personal space. Because I can't control myself. I want you to write an order to have the chief of police go and take away all his guns. Yeah. We're here to take your guns. Because your city councilman over here is afraid what he might do to you. Seriously?
Seriously?
So I'm like, I don't know, Joyce, how bad does it have to freaking get? First Amendment gone, Second gone. They're going to walk on private property rights, have been doing this. Is this a good example or what? So here's Stuart Rhodes from the Oath Keepers is coming August 27th to muster out in Quartzsite. Saying hello. Why? Be in support of the 10 officers that...
It's not just the Oath Keepers. There's like 8 organizations.
Oh, yeah. They got their own train that follows them. I don't worry about it. But so what happens is that you have, and of course we'll be out there and have some fun saying hello. So, and how this all started was, it was Barry Hess saw the YouTube that they did of her being arrested, put it on Freedom's Phoenix, and it exploded. It went everywhere. I mean, they've been on Fox News. They've been on the Napolitano Show. It's been on every newspaper across the planet. And they are so much so that they took and stripped. They're all proud, vain people, but they took all the city councilmen's pictures off of the website. They said, I don't know who's sitting there, So they just stripped. So this is what's going on. But we still don't really have a bead of understanding, and that's why I'm going to do the show live Monday for 2 hours and Tuesday for 2 hours. Because you'll know, well, I couldn't make it that day, or I didn't know, or I'm going, you know what? I already been through this before. I know how this works. I go both Monday and Tuesday. You don't get an excuse. Okay? Everybody gets to come have their say. I want the other side. Come on in. Tell me everything. But I want the right questions asked. And the question is very simple. Who in the hell is behind all this? Who protects these people? When these people do these kinds of things, where's the county attorney? This is a county jurisdiction thing. This is, the sheriff, Arpaio, oh yeah, man, I'm here to protect some, is there a television camera somewhere? I mean, you know how this is going to work. So you would think that would happen. Here all of a sudden, because it's planetary, the state is just hoping this thing goes away. Tom Horn came out with an opinion saying, yeah, well, your little secret meetings that you did and without the public input, that's bad. You shouldn't do that. Horn. I mean, these people don't know Horn. We know Horn. Okay? Actually, he ain't getting no help, all right?
I know that.
So I want you to hear their story about what's really happening there and the things that are going on. But the input that I want to have and the idea I want to put in their head is they go, the former mayor, Richard Oldham, he said, well, we don't want to disincorporate because then you kind of throw the baby out with the bathwater. Rosemary's Baby. I'm like, come on, man. You know, how bad does this, how many fangs does this baby got to have, So I'm just, if you start it over, you can at least take it and do your own structure. Because the League of Cities and Towns is kind of like, well, you get to do it this way. Because the county, they recognize you as a city or not. Well, they don't do that at the county level unless the structure is the way they want for their what? Their plan. So what's out there? Water. It's like halfway between, Phoenix and LA. You got out in the middle of the freaking nothing. You mean on Quartzsite, there's nothing there until it's nice and warm in the winter and you get 100,000 RVs. You got like 500,000 people there. It becomes the 4th largest city in Arizona. I mean, we're talking big, okay? So there's a bunch of money to be had. Well, how do you get parking tickets if you ain't got nobody writing a ticket? We got to have somebody writing a ticket. Well, we got to have a city write a ticket. And if you got guys writing a ticket, we got to have somebody process it. It's all about the money, okay? But what they walked into was another structure that was ruling them from on high. And because of the water and the intersection of highways there and so on, you are under control. I already saw it happen in Apache Junction. Anybody that was originally there that went there to be left alone didn't get left alone until they went to jail, they had their land taken from them, eminent domain, or they were just ticketed out of existence. This is what's coming to you. And it's because of something larger. Because the government, the Constitution, and the cities are no longer there to defend the rights of the individual. They're there to take them away. Until you guys realize that, you're just begging for it, and it's not going to get fixed. So let's go ahead and do some announcements first, and we'll get right to Jennifer. Drew wanted to say something real quick. Go ahead.
I can do it at the end.
No, I want to do it so we don't have to worry about the end time.
Well, you just built it all up, and that's what everybody wants to hear.
I know.
So I don't know.
Thanks,
appreciate it. So if anyone doesn't know, so we started this really neat program where we wanted to, end the Federal Reserve. Anybody agree with that? We started putting silver dimes in cards to kind of educate people and to share with our friends. These are old Mercury dimes. They have like 2.25 grams of silver. Anyway, we went to, I didn't get to do this at last month's Breakfast Club, but we went to it's like Anarchy Summer Camp in New Hampshire, the Porcupine Freedom Festival. And it's a bunch of libertarians who are all very familiar with silver, all very familiar with what its real value is. And these were trading as like money, and we were buying beers and leaving tips with like silver dimes. And it was really kind of neat to see silver as an alternative currency actually working with 1,000 libertarians in this campsite and buying food and booze and different products and all this stuff. So we had a lot of fun with that and it was very successful. The other project that we're working on with my buddy Nick is there's an application for your smartphone. You can sit there and it'll update the spot price of silver. And then it'll break out what dimes, what quarters, what 50-cent pieces are all worth at the given spot price of the day. Just makes it really convenient if you want to trade in silver. So I have a few over here that I'm selling just as examples. You want to come check them out after the Breakfast Club. There's a similar concept they did at the same camp, a gram of silver in a card. So these were like going for $2, a good tip. I don't know, that's really it. I tell you more. Come ask me after the meeting. We're sitting over there and I got some other stuff to show off. If anyone follows Adam Kokesh's TV show, he actually gave us a mention on this last week. But Monday, we're excited. He's going to give us a mention for these door hangers we came up with. So it says, come back with a warrant. Yeah. And it's got the 4th Amendment on it. It's scottblock.org. Nick over here does a podcast for that website. And everyone, and yeah, we've got plenty of these for sale. Everybody, can appreciate the 4th Amendment, right? But we want to get a little more radical with it. So the back says, government bureaucrats not welcome. I don't need the 4th Amendment to let them know that, so I'll read it. This family is self-sufficient, can take care of its own problems without government intervention. If you're from the government agency and you're here to help, we ask that you quickly move along. All conversations on this property are subject to audio and video recording. So, again, it's a promotional thing for the podcast. That's another conversation for another time. The point of the door hanger is, and there's a lot of, like the Jose Guarena thing, you're familiar with that in Tucson, the Marine them shots at 71 times. if he'd had one of these on the door, it'd have been pretty damn clear, you know, that they didn't need their help that day. So the program that we've come up with. Yeah, I mean, the reality is a warrant is simply a permission to kill somebody from a judge. But so the other idea is that the next time something like that happens, the Garania shooting, and we're looking for some sponsors for this if anyone's interested, but I'll send 50 of these to an activist on the ground in that city where the next botched SWAT raid goes down and have him go put one on every door in that neighborhood. You know, an article will go up on the website about it, maybe do a podcast about it, and let that neighborhood know, you know, this is what happened in your neighborhood, you know, whoever the next Jose Garania is. So that's kind of the idea of why we came up with these. These were a big hit at the festival we were at. So again, we're selling other stuff. The other product that we came up with, if anyone's familiar with colloidal silver, we came up with an awesome little kit. Comes with the silver, the wire, everything else, and you know, you can talk to us later about it. We're promoting silver because, well, it's going through the roof, and the dollar is going away, and people need to get you know, get out of the dollar and hold as much silver as possible. Everyone here is probably educated to that fact, but these cards make it really easy to educate your friends, family, and neighbor. If everyone just carried one of these dime cards around, you know, we could educate this entire country and just drop the dollar tomorrow and, you know, let it crash along with the rest of this federal government that we don't need. So thanks for your time.
Now, I had Peter Schiff on the show Thursday, and they wrote an article about these cards. And then, was it Bill Murphy from Mises Institute did a thing about it. National Public Radio did a thing about it. This is going all over. Russia Today. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. They're seeing that this is like real money, and people are using it that way. And of course, it had libertytrade.net all over it, you know, so that keeps getting, you probably get a little bit of spike in there too, which is like a eBay and Craigslist for liberty-minded people that you can denominate in gold and silver.
Ernie, quick question. Drew mentioned that Adam Kokesh has a TV show. How do you catch that?
Well, it's on Dish or whatever. It's Russia Today. You go RT.com.
Or AdamVersusTheMan.com.
Yeah.
And they're all on YouTube.
And they're all on YouTube and so on. It's, yeah, it's
Hopefully I'll get this back, but I'll pass it around.
It's in 20 million homes. I mean, you know, you got 20 million people have access to see a show that's kind of, you know, about our stuff. It keeps going up. And they're doing well. I talked to Adam last month, and he was saying it's doing so well that they're looking to give him another half hour, and they have to cut from somewhere, and Tom Hartman's not happy. So we'll see what happens. It's getting more and more popular, which is kind of what we anticipated. Okay, final.
I was going to say, you can see it on YouTube. You can see the whole replays.
Adam versus the Man. The this month's magazine went out last night. Okay, for Freedom's Phoenix. The front cover is about farming. We're having farming. It's all about. Donna does videos and everything. We went up to Washington. We learned about goat cheese, how to milk goat from the beginning to making goat milk to making goat cheese. Got it all there for you. You want to know how that's out. 2.5 pounds for 2.5 gallons of goat milk. Man, I'm the pro. Ask me all about it. Okay. Then you have gardening. We had Wonder Soil. We have then Tom DeWeese did a thing on Agenda 21. We had a couple articles on that. Anthony Gregory did a great article. Charles Goyette, William Puper. I mean, another 85-page fantastic magazine. And it's free this weekend because Tiger went on vacation this weekend and the subscription thing was messed up and he's not around to fix it. So to make the deadline, I just put it up there. So if you want to get access to the free magazine without having to pay for it, you better go get it this weekend, okay? FYI. Jennifer Jones, and the secret is that, you know, she probably doesn't want anybody to know, but that her uncle-in-law is Alex Jones.
No.
Oh, did I say that out loud?
Not true.
Right.
Maybe far distant cousin to my husband. We're not really sure if he's a Jones out of Indiana.
Now I'm going to use it anyway. So the thing is that let that rumor keep going. You never know. So the thing is that she came to our attention when Barry put up that video, and it exploded. What wasn't a surprise, I'm like, yeah, you know, what you think was going to happen? I had no idea how representative this was of so many people across the country. I'm on vacation in Washington State. A friend of mine's having a farm up there, he had some construction work done. The contractor comes over and he says, "Are you Ernest Freedom's? Yeah," and he goes, "Oh, we read your stuff all the time." This is up by the Canadian border. And he goes, I want you to come over and meet with some people. So that night, I went over and they had some families around the table telling me about all of their problems with that county and how they're paying all attention to Quartzsite. Because what's going on in Quartzsite is the same thing that's happening there. If you look on Freedom's Phoenix where it says special editions, at the very bottom it says Washington State Politics. They're getting some artwork done, they're accumulating some stories, they're getting ready to launch. I got it all set up for them. And they're getting ready to launch this whole anti-government Quartzsite thing from Washington State because they have the same problems, the same way, same people. I give them the same information, what questions to ask. It's coming at you from the county level with authorization from the state, with directives from up there. This is how this is being done. A lot of people don't understand. I have 4 articles on how they're doing it. Anthony Gregory, Tom DeWeese, Rosa Curie, I think is how you say her name. She's a lefty, lesbian liberal from Southern California, and she's been talking to blue hair Republican groups and saying, we in the same boat. And they're going, yay. All this information I put on this month along with the gardening and so on because I know it's relevant. You're not going to be able to sustain yourself, even out in Quartzsite, if they're telling you what you can and can't do. Jennifer Jones, go ahead and come on up and tell us how it is that you can't do what you want to do there and what they're doing against you so you can't do it. Jennifer Jones.
Okay, I'm kind of short, so I should.
No, you got at least.
You know, last time I took the microphone off of a stand, I ended up getting arrested. So, okay, there you go.
Don't take the mic out of me.
I didn't give it up easily the last time. Anyways, Okay, right. Okay, is that okay? You guys good with that? Okay. All right. I think Ernie did a pretty good job of kind of giving you guys an overview about why what's happening in Quartzsite is so relevant to what's happening around the country. And he did touch on the fact that we've very clearly lost our First Amendment rights, and now it's been quite public that we've lost our Second Amendment rights. But what I found out 3 years ago is that there was no 4th, no 14th, no nothing. I mean, it's just gone. I came there like a lot of people do as a seasonal vendor. I've been a pet groomer for, I think, 27 years now. Kind of wearing out the old body, wanted someplace where I could be my own boss. And that's one of the reasons why Quartzsite has sort of become a test case for this, is people from all over the country and Canada and other countries come to Quartzsite every winter because we have basically what amounts to the largest flea market in America. Now, what you have, a couple 100,000 people, right? Everybody puts that little tent, sells their wares, gets a $50 vendor permit from the government to do this. Of course, now they passed an ordinance where you have to have a state tax ID number to get that vendor permit, even if you're not selling something like a pet groomer or an upholstery guy or something like that. But, you know, layers of bureaucracy. But people are coming there and having a good time, sing-alongs, rich, poor, you know, hippies, everything you could think of. And they were doing something that scared a lot of people, and that was we're bartering. Okay, because in addition to being the largest flea market, it's also a huge international gem and mineral show. So you have people who are bringing product directly from the mines, and a lot of wholesalers, a lot of money changing hands, and not a whole lot of oversight. There's rumors that it started some woman who broke down selling her kids' toys out of the back of a pickup truck, and I have no idea if that's true, but it sounds great in the press. But you know, here you have a whole lot of people who came to the middle of nowhere, alone, to make enough of a living that they could leave Quartzsite before it got too hot, and maybe come back and make a living next year. You know, I mean, I'm sure some of these people coming from South America with the mines, I'm sure there's some good money being made, probably nowhere near the kind of money that's being made at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show. But, you know, it was a good gig for a lot of people. And I met somebody judging a dog show who said, oh, if you groom dogs, you should go to Quartzsite. Everybody's got an RV, little dog in the RV. You know, you do really well there. They looked at my photo album and they said, boy, you're good at what you do. And so I was working in Las Vegas, and they weren't real RV friendly there. And I like to keep my dogs in the RV and take them with me wherever I go so that I can check on them and know they're safe and walk them and care for them and so on and so forth. So when Vegas said, we don't want you to park your RV and you take up 2 spaces in the parking lot, I said, kiss my ass, I'm out of here. So I said, well, what about the Quartzsite place that guy told us about? I said, well, I don't know, maybe we could try it. So I went for 10 weeks with my ex-boyfriend, and we loved it. We had a great time. Line of people trying to get into town every year. I mean, traffic, as far as the eye could see, backed up one weekend. We were amazed. That was the last year I ever saw that many people come to Quartzsite. And there's been a steady decline, but it's still a great, fun place, and we want people to come back. But it draws an eclectic mix of people, and what I noticed was that a lot of people that come to Quartzsite are fairly liberty-minded, free-spirited kinds of people. You know, when you talk about some of the issues that Ernie talks about on the show or on the website, people actually know what these issues are. It was kind of cool. I was like, wow, I think I found a place I want to live and settle, and eventually that's what I did. I finally changed my driver's license and all that and became a registered voter. And I even ran for office this spring. They recalled all the council people that are currently giving the mayor so much trouble. The people got very angry at the way they treated the mayor. He was our first elected mayor for about 3 years, I think. We got into this mess because we had a succession of appointed acting mayors. Oh, this one died, and that one had health problems, and this one owed back taxes, and they put this on him, and he ran away like a scared little girl. And so next thing you know, every time we lose a mayor, what do? They appoint one from amongst their ranks. Well, that leaves a vacant council seat. So what do? They appoint their friend to the council seat. Now, you can't get anybody on anything on the agenda unless it's recommended to the council by a municipal board. Not a committee, but a board. Who gets appointed to the board? Well, anybody the council wants. They approve all appointments to the boards. So, all of this was kind of,
Rosemary's Baby.
Rosemary's Baby, yeah. Big teeth. So I didn't pay any attention to this for the first decade or so. I was doing my little part-time business there and not trying to get rich, just trying to, pay for the dogs and get out and come back and live a modest life, self-sufficient. And one day, it's the end of the season, the swap meet's empty. I'm the last real vendor left because now I'm staying like 7 months out of the year. And there was a guy in the swap meet with me who was going to be a caretaker for the summer. And another couple who broke down in Quartzsite and was waiting for their social security check or something. So there was 3 of us in this little swap meet, and here comes the code enforcement guy. And he's got a police officer with him. And he's giving my neighbors here a hard time. He said, well, you can't do this. You can't stay overnight. An RV park is not a swap meet, and a swap meet is not an RV park. Well, that wasn't true. Actually, the codes and ordinances and such pretty much say that they are basically the same thing. Now, if you want to sell, you do have to have that government permit. So my neighbor comes over to me and he says, well, you're pretty smart. Can they throw us out of here in 24 hours? And I said, no, but don't make them mad and just, smile to the nice officer. And when they leave, we'll go down to the library and we'll look up the codes and see what they say. So they get done hassling my neighbors and tell them if they're not out of the swap meet in 24 hours, they're under arrest and so on and so forth. So he turns around and he says, you can't do this. I say, I can't do what? Well, you can't have a kennel in the swap meet. I said, what do you mean? I have a permit. It says pet sitting and pet grooming, and I've been here like a decade, or I think 8-9 years at that time. I said, you guys give me a permit every year. Why can't I do this? Well, you can't do this. I said, with all due respect, sir, I'm the volunteer executive director of legislative affairs for National Dog Registry. So I keep the law on my hard drive. Now, if you have a local ordinance that supersedes the state law, I'd like to see it. And that was the wrong thing to say. Don't question that authority. No, that's a bad idea. So he went back to town hall. He said, if you want to see that ordinance, well, I'll just come back and write you the ticket. I don't have to show it to you. I'll just write you the ticket. I said, with all due respect, I want to see the ordinance. Well, of course, he couldn't back up his assertion. He went to town hall. He pulled my vendor permit out of the file. He wrote, revoked, as per Mark. And he called the county animal control officer, told him I was running an illegal kennel on a revoked license, and that the animals were in danger. now I've rid 5 generations of champion show dogs, I mean, my dogs have a better pedigree than I'll ever have, and they're my family, they're my children, my husband and I now, we don't have kids, neither of us ever had kids. So when you mess with the kids, you're messing with mama. And here comes animal control with the officer, and he says, I'm here to inspect your animals. And I said, that's nice. Can I see your warrant? Well, I don't need a warrant. I'm here to inspect your animals. With all due respect, sir, you need a warrant. I said, I just listened to Supreme Court justices argue open fields law like for 2 hours the other night. And let me explain to you, you have no exigent circumstances. It's a nice balmy 70-something degree day. You can hear the air conditioning purring. The 2 dogs in the yard have food, water, everything they need, and I rotate them in and out all day, and I'm home with them all day, and you need to come back when you have a warrant. I'll show you anything you want. He said, well, how many dogs do you have? I said, we can have that conversation when you come back with a warrant. So he calls for backup, wants to know how many trucks he can get to come take my dogs. Now you understand that this happened to me probably less than a month after the Pima County Sheriff and the Humane Society of the United States had raided the home of a man named Pat Patrick in Tucson. They rolled a tank through this man's front yard, drug an elderly couple out of bed with automatic weapons pointed at their heads. Mr. Patrick and Emily told me that the gear was so new they hadn't even had a scuff on their shoes yet. And they took all their dogs. Not only did they take their dogs, they dispersed them to the far winds, the ones that they didn't kill, and they took a lifetime of breeding. These people had gotten a Lifetime Achievement Award from the registry, and they killed all their dogs. But yeah, which is ever so humane. Eventually, Emily and Pat Patrick were acquitted of all the charges against them.
Any compensation?
Completely acquitted.
Any compensation for the dog?
Absolutely not. Okay, they do have, last time I checked, some sort of a pending case on that and what have you. But I had been contacted by the Patricks for assistance through the dog registry. People say, can you help them? And now this had just happened like 3 weeks, and here's this guy at my door calling for backup to take my dogs. And it was all I could do to muster my sensibilities and stay calm. I said, whatever I do, I'm not going to allow them to take the dogs if I can help it. But if I go to jail, I can't help the dogs. So I kept asking, let me talk to your supervisor. So Sergeant, we go through this whole thing again. By this time, 40, 50 people are standing around, and my boyfriend, who's now my husband, he's taking pictures with a camera phone on the other side of the fence, because I keep my private area fenced with a no trespassing sign, and they were all inside my fenced area, and I kept saying, well, just show me the warrant and we'll settle all this. And finally the sergeant says, you know, I'm tired of listening to this, and he's going in your house. And the 3 officers and the animal control opened the door, and I knew, because of dealing with legislation and dog issues and counties, supervisors and town councils across the country trying to help other people, and I wrote an article on what to do when they come to your door. I said, just do what you told everybody else to do. It'll be fine. And it didn't work out that way, actually. I did everything right, and they did everything wrong, and I knew that if they'd had a warrant, that I would have been allowed to be present at the execution of that warrant. So the animal control guy goes in, and I got a litter of brand new show puppies, and I didn't want him opening kennels or touching the babies, so I go to follow him in, and I'm told that if I try to follow the police into my own home, I'm going to be arrested. And the police officer stepped in my doorway. Well, this was my first, encounter with the police. I didn't have a parking ticket. I mean, I got license, insurance. I'm really the kind of person that you would hopefully want to come to your community and open a little business and serve the community. I didn't even think anybody didn't like me. And so I went down the next day, I think, and I filed a complaint with Town Hall for having my civil rights violated. Well, that didn't go over too well either. Then, even worse, the animal control officer wrote me a ticket saying that I needed a county kennel permit. Well, I went to the hearing, and I pointed out to the hearing board officer, who is a retired justice of the peace, and God bless us, he's now our county supervisor, one of 3. And he told me, well, I don't care what the state law says. If Quartzsite's not going to enforce the ordinance, then the county's going to come in and do it. And I said, with all due respect, sir, state law says you can't do that. The town is an incorporated municipality, and they have an ordinance as strict as the state law, and you have no jurisdiction. And he said, I don't care. And by the way, and I don't even like your rabies certificates that you had from Oklahoma, and I want you to get something different. So I appealed to the County Board of Supervisors, and the county attorney said, oh my God, she's right. And he sent the town a letter saying that animal control would never come back into Quartzsite again. And I thought, well, yay, I did it. I proved that, you know, the law is the law and they don't get to break it either, and you know, now they'll leave me alone. No, that didn't happen. As a matter of fact, the council put the police in charge of animal control, and they put him, the code enforcement guy ended up leaving when the town manager moved up to be manager. And they put the police in charge of code enforcement and animal control. So I made the mistake of getting up at the council meeting and pointing out to them that that was sort of a conflict of interest on that warrantless search and seizure thing when you're sending them for code enforcement and probable cause and all kinds of big words they didn't want to hear. And then former Mayor Huntley started using the gavel and with the sit down and the shut up and the, you know, we don't want to hear any of these kinds of civil rights stuff. And a lot of people in Quartzsite, you know, they don't live there, so it's real easy to make their life difficult. You know, we'll send the zoning guy over, or we'll, you know, send the police over, and they just kind of move along. You know, maybe they got kids and they don't want anybody to call CPS, or, you know, maybe 20 years ago they had a felony for something before they grew up, or, you know, they would just as soon leave. Well, the problem is I didn't have anything to lose. I didn't own property. I don't have children. I don't have a past, at least not one they know about. I mean, we're all human, right? But, you know, there was nothing they could hold over me and nothing they could use against me. And the worst part is I had a sort of a background they didn't know about in looking up laws and ordinances and codes and a pretty high IQ that I never utilized, much to my parents' chagrin. So I have the ability to look at seemingly unrelated events and make connections, very quick, rapid connections. I see patterns where most people just see random incidents. And I didn't leave. And so the more I refused to leave, the more difficult they tried to make it. And the position that I was in is after 27 years, I can't physically go to another town and build another business. I have no retirement. I have no insurance. I'm in the same position a lot of Americans are in. I've got no safety net. I built my little business and I thought I was going to hire somebody to just take it over and phase me out and, you know, buy a little piece of happily ever after, farming my goat cheese and my aquaponics or whatever. I met my husband there. He's one of those gem and mineral guys that does silversmithing and all that kind of stuff. And I taught him how to wash dogs, and he taught me how to cut rocks. And I knew I met the right guy because he said that he wanted to have 100 acres with a big farm and some animals, and he was sovereign. Did I know what that meant? Yeah, actually I did. He said, is that a problem? And I said, no, that's not a problem. I'll drive, honey. So the police chief apparently has been running extensive background checks on us in the hopes that he would find something. Now I can understand in his position why he'd be afraid of somebody who's educated, articulate, intelligent, well-liked in the community, and critical of him. But, you know, if you run somebody through the system once, maybe twice, then shows up, no wants, no warrants, no past, a rational person would let it go. If the DPS investigation affirms what his own administrative technician has asserted in a 2-year period since this started about 3.5 years ago, in a 2-year period, I've allegedly been run through the NCIC CJIS system 109 times. And my husband, whose name just happens to be John Jones, has been run through the system 263 times. So I got kind of tired of it last April, a year and a half ago in April. The police chief came over. This was during the election cycle when Mayor Foster was running. He'd gotten past the primary. We were heading into the final election. And I had Ed Foster signs in front of the property I was leasing that year. And I walked the dogs in my pajamas in the morning, and this little red truck comes spitting gravel onto the property. And people jump out and start putting up Wes Huntley for mayor signs. So I said, honey, let's go see what they're up to. And I said, good morning, Mr. Mayor. Boy, I guess I'm going to have to put up a lot more Ed Foster signs today. And he's frantically whacking up the signs and dialing the phone. And so I said, honey, let's go get the camera. I don't think this is going to end well. So I went back to get out of my pajamas and put up my dog, and here comes the police chief. Unlike what he said in his report, it wasn't 20 minutes that no one else responded to the call. It was like within a couple of minutes, and we suspect he was hiding around the building across the street. We kind of think the whole thing was maybe a setup, but that's just, No, that's just my they're not paranoid when they really are out to get you, right? I got a t-shirt that says that. But anyways, long story short, we grabbed the camera. My husband starts filming for Mayor Wes Huntley, talking to the police chief and his wife. And the police chief turns around and says, let me see some ID. And my husband says, well, for what? And the police chief says, disorderly conduct. My husband says, well, there's no disorderly conduct here. He's like 20 feet away filming on property we leased. And the police chief and the other officer, who had also quickly pulled in behind him, grabbed my husband, wrestled his coffee cup away. Let me see some IDs. Like, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. Finally, they let go of him. And he starts yelling, honey, call our lawyer. He just put his hands on me. And I'm dialing 911, telling him, listen, I don't care about jurisdiction. I want a county sheriff out here. Police chief just assaulted my husband. So I said, honey, come through the back way of the shop. We locked the shop. I got his DD-214, which if you don't know what that is, that's a paper you get when you're discharged from the military. That and his birth certificate is all he has. So we locked them out. I grabbed the thing, we got the camera rolling, and I hand him his ID. Police chief grabs it in both hands, and while both hands are occupied, I put the padlock on the gate.
Yeah.
Now, here's the police chief standing with a no trespassing sign in his face and a lock on the gate. And I called Ed for backup as a witness because, just in case something went wrong, I wanted somebody to know. So the police chief is telling me through the fence that free speech rights are limited, and I'm saying, well, maybe yelling fire in a crowded theater, and he said, there's penalties to pay. And here drives up Mr. Foster. So he tells Ed that he needs to leave or he's going to be arrested. And Ed pulls a few feet farther away, and we have this videotape discussion with the police chief. And finally, he leaves us, and he goes to harass Ed for a bit, and then finally they leave the property. No one was arrested. We weren't charged with anything. But here's my husband showing that he has ID, and he's handing it to the police chief, and it's on videotape. So the county sheriff shows up. Nice lady, seemed like at the time, by the name of Erin. So we show her the videotape of them assaulting my husband. It's kind of hard to see because the arms are flying, and he's the one holding the camera. And we explain to her what happened, and she goes back to county sheriff to file a police report. Well, the county sheriff was a officer on the Colorado River Indian Tribes Reservation with our police chief. So a couple hours later, here comes the nice sheriff, and she says, I'm really, really sorry, but this isn't going anywhere. But call me when you put the video on YouTube. So we did. And the police chief was none too happy to see his face on YouTube. Especially, you know how people, when they play poker, they might have a tell? Well, when the police chief is bluffing and he knows he's bluffing, he licks his lips like a lizard. And of course, just to have a little bit of fun at his expense and make myself feel better, I kind of looped that on the videotape. And then every officer in his department saw the video, everybody at the sheriff's office, everybody at DPS, everybody saw Police Chief Jeff Gilbert licking his lips like a lizard, making a jackass of himself. So now I really wasn't his favorite person in town. And I got a hold of a lawyer. We don't have any attorneys in Quartzsite. We don't even have a Walmart or, We have a bank now, though. We have a bank. I don't bank there because the town does. But, there's a lot of things we don't have, and attorneys and legal advice for the citizens is one of those things. So I went down to Yuma, and I retained the services of a guy who had been our town prosecutor for a brief period of time. And he kind of had an axe to grind because, according to him, the town had sort of burned him too. So now I'm working, and every penny I got's going to this lawyer I can't afford because I've got a lot of customers now after a decade who count on me to be there to take care of their pets while they're in town. And I can't let them down. I mean, we literally don't have enough people to care for all the animals that come. So, I feel like I got a sense of responsibility to the community. Other people in the community said, well, you fought him and you won and you were smart and you documented it. And they told me all their sad stories. Well, code enforcement guy did this to me and the police did this to my wife. And now I feel like the whole community's counting on me. They said, please don't let it go. Please, for the rest of us, don't let it go. So I feel like I'm holding the whole weight of a population of 3,600 up to 200,000 people who can't vote on my shoulders. I'm not going to let it go. I filed a notice of claim for harassment and intentional infliction of emotional distress, I think is what he put on there. And so I had the constable serve the town council at the town council meeting right before I left town under my lawyer's advice. No, this was last summer. So last June, the constable serves him with a notice of claim, and he serves the former mayor. And he has to wait to do that. Well, the constable gets up as the former mayor's leaving, and he goes to serve him with it, and the former mayor shoves the constable right in front of the police chief. And the constable says, I'm an officer of the court performing my duties. Arrest this man. And the chief says, I don't think so. So now the constable's mad. And he's filing complaints to AZ Post and certification boards and so on and so forth. Well, my lawyer said, Quartzsite's not big enough to protect you while they mull over this notice of claim, so I'm going to suggest you get out of town. And we did. We were gone about 90 days last summer.
Tell them how you left town.
Oh, yeah, this was good, too. I wasn't quite packed all the way, so I had to call Ed. He's the mayor now. I'm packing up the last of my stuff. He was the first elected mayor we'd had in 3 years. We call him the people's mayor because the people put him in there. And he got in by a slim margin, 30-something votes out of, I don't know, we have about 1,300 registered voters. But he got in there, and they didn't see that coming. They were not happy. And they treated him like the redheaded stepchild from the day he took office. So here, I serve him with this notice of claim on a Tuesday night, and I'm not quite packed. So we're packing frantically all day Wednesday, and the police chief is sitting across the street watching us. Now, I just served this man with a notice of claim for harassment, and he's sitting there watching us. And it's like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock. We want to leave, and he's sitting there. So I had to call the mayor, and the mayor had to call dispatch and tell county dispatch that the police chief needed to go elsewhere, and the mayor actually gave us a personal escort out of town. So... No, they have a common council government, which means that the mayor chairs the meetings. He is the CEO, and he does have certain powers delegated by the state. But basically, it's a council of 7. So, as far as a vote goes, it's not a strong mayor system. He's just 1 vote out of 7, and he's outnumbered 6-1 on almost everything that comes before the council.
Can we pause for 1 minute?
Sure. And I had to get back into town by a certain date. And the reason I had to get back into town is because who's another sort of political troublemaker in their eyes. He had been arrested for disorderly conduct at the meeting the very night that the police chief assaulted my husband. There was a council meeting that night. And we were almost afraid to go to the council meeting that night. We were all joking, I bet we don't make it out of there. Well, I made it barely out of there. The police chief blocked my exit that night at the council meeting when I was trying to leave, and told me if I didn't leave, I would be cited for disrupting a public meeting. The meeting wasn't a public meeting; it was adjourned to executive session. But I was trying to leave, and he wasn't letting me leave. All the same time, he was telling me he was going to cite me. Well, about 10 minutes after I left the meeting, he turned on Mike, and they arrested Mike. I think the crime that he actually committed was he called the councilman's wife. He said something like, your husband's a jerk, and asked the building official if he was always an asshole or something like that. So he gets disorderly conduct and resisting arrest. Now he's got to go to trial. So I got to be back by October 1st or something like that. I don't remember the date. So I don't even make it into Quartzsite. I get as far as the county courthouse. I almost missed the hearing because I had a car trouble at the motorhome. So I get to the courthouse and I'm slapped with a restraining order. Restraining order? What did I do? Tortuous interference with the contractual obligations of the other free newspaper in town who puts up all the ads for the incumbent council people. Now, last time I checked, that was a civil charge, not a criminal charge. But the police chief was more than happy to write that one up. Harassment and tortuous interference. So I get slapped with this thing, and the photographer follows me around the trial, trying to elicit a confrontation to get me arrested before I can testify in Mr. Ross' behalf and testify against the police chief. So, you know, he ends up getting convicted on the disorderly conduct, and it's an appeal, and that didn't bode well for anybody else who wanted to speak at meetings and things. They thought they'd gotten a small victory. Aha, we got Roth now. So I get back into town, and I file for a hearing, and of course it gets tossed out by Judge Mike Newman. Pretty fair guy, at least in my dealings with him. He seems like a pretty fair guy as far as justice of the peace go. So I announced to the town at the, you know, not that I wanted to particularly run for council. It only pays $300 a month, and there's a lot of homework involved, and I do have other business stuff. But everybody said, you know, we recalled them all while you were gone. Would you run for council? Sure, I'll run for council. Now I already got this. I've already said I'm going to start a rival newspaper, because now I'm mad. Because newspaper, and I'm going to run for town council against the vice mayor. Well, a couple of weeks go by, and here comes the official that we just hired. He comes on property I'm leasing this year. Starts taking pictures of my personal stuff. I say, of course, now we live with the camera. We don't have a gun. I'm big on the Second Amendment, but I don't have a gun. But I have cameras, lots and lots of cameras. Everyone in the community is arming themselves now with cameras. The camera is the new gun. So anyways, Mr. Johnson pulls on the property after hours on his day off, and we've got the camera rolling. So I tell him, Mr. Johnson, you need to leave. You don't have a warrant. You're trespassing. And he says to me, you don't have any rights. You're not the property owner. Oh, Mr. Johnson, I lease this property, and I actually have a license. I have government permission to do this, and I do so have rights. He says, no, you don't. So I said, you know, Mr. Johnson, you need to leave. Excuse me, you need to leave. He shoves me.
Where's the camera?
And the camera was rolling. It's on YouTube. You can watch it. Okay? So, because now we figure, you know, if a tree falls in Quartzsite, no one knows about it, right? So we're filming everything. We're starting to put this stuff up on YouTube. Even the council meetings, just filming the council meetings. You know, logging in the votes, boring stuff, or at least so we thought. Of course, now we've got attorney generals and things looking into this, and it's a darn good thing we were recording these council meetings and these votes and all of this. It's been invaluable and kind of synchronicity that we had actually done it. But, you know, I call 911 and I say, listen, I need to report a criminal trespass here. Of course, they send the police over, and I show them the videotape from start to finish, before he comes on the property all the way to the time where he backs illegally across 4 lanes of highway traffic and leaves. And the officers that responded went back to file the report, and the police chief says, no, you're going to arrest her and her husband. And the officer said, no. Okay.
I had an email from that officer to the county attorney.
Yeah.
Wherein the officer questioned the county attorney about violating her civil rights at that point. The county attorney's response was to send an email back to the chief of police suggesting the officer talk to the town attorney, basically thinking out the officer.
Yeah. So that's where all this started, with the officers who finally stood up to the chief. You know, they'd been watching this go on, God bless their little hearts, for a couple of years. Probably even longer than before what happened to me. But the officer said, if you're going to do this, we're not, it's on us. It's on our certification. And she's smart, and she's not leaving, and she's already sued the town and the police chief. And we don't want to be on that list. So they refused to arrest me. And that was on a Friday. Monday morning, I went down to the town hall and I filed a formal complaint on the official town complaint form. And I said, Mr. Johnson assaulted me and committed a criminal trespass. Well, I'm walking up the steps to town hall to the meeting Tuesday night. Now, I'm a candidate for office, and they arrest me on the steps of town hall in front of my constituents. They arrested me for false reporting to 911 because, according to the police chief, when he looked at that video, he didn't think it was an assault. He's the only one, but he didn't think it was an assault. And then I was also arrested for interfering with government operations because I wouldn't let this man trespass on my property and take pictures without a warrant. Now, the interesting thing is, in Arizona, you have what's called a plain view arrest. Now, you can either arrest somebody with a warrant, or you can say, gee, I was standing there and I saw that guy grab that woman's purse and run past me, and I have reasonable cause to believe that he's a purse snatcher. But if it's a misdemeanor, you're supposed to, basically it's a cite and release, kind of a write you a ticket sort of thing. So from the get-go, it's pretty clear that this was not a lawful arrest. But it didn't matter because they managed to get us fingerprinted, background checked probably a few more times, and of course everybody wanted to post bail and all that, and then I get out after a few hours in the jail, and a couple of days later they arrest my husband for the same thing, for false reporting to law enforcement. Yeah, the mayor bailed me out. And what really sucked was immediately every judge in the county recused themselves. So they didn't have a judge to even arraign us. It took almost 6 months to get my bail money back before they could find a judge from a guy that I have a fair amount of faith in as far as the judicial system goes, a judge named John Henry out of Wickenburg. Seems like a pretty fair guy as far as judges go. Probably the best of the bunch. I think I got lucky that he took the case and is willing to drive in. As a matter of fact, he's the only judge that will take any of these politically motivated cases. In the meantime, the county prosecutor didn't want to prosecute anything as a felony. The police chief's filling out supplements to all these reports, right, where he in his infinite wisdom is recommending felony charges on all this. Of course, the county prosecutor, he's like, this isn't a winnable case, there's no likelihood of conviction, I will not try this as a felony. So they kick it back to the town court, and the town prosecutor says the same thing, so they fire the town prosecutor. Now, they couldn't find anybody to become the new town prosecutor except this fine fellow named Martin Brannon. Now, I've already danced with Martin Brannon once because he was the county prosecutor when I beat them on the animal control ticket. And in the meantime, he'd been I'm not positive, it might be, was it Apache County? Okay. He was working as the assistant prosecutor in another county, and he got fired from that job because he recommended, I believe, that a couple of sheriffs interrogate a murderer without an attorney present, and it botched the case, and the murderer walked, and the Bar Association sanctioned him, and nobody but Martin Brannon was willing to work in Quartzsite. So they hired him on an interim basis in the hopes that they could, throw us all in jail. And they level a few more things at me. I go to town hall. I'm trying to get a news story. Now I got my little newspaper going, and my husband says, honey, I just heard on the police scanner. I think they made a big drug bust on the freeway. Maybe it says they're going to bring in the suspect in the car, and now you know where the door to the jail is behind the town hall, so why don't you go over there and see if you can get a statement from them. I think it's the officers that don't hate you, and then you can write a nice story for the police department and show that you don't hate all officers, you just hate corrupt officers. So I say, sure, honey, and I grab my camera, and now Town Hall at Quartzsite is not fenced off. There's a lovely walking path that invites you from the front of Town Hall to the back of Town Hall, and the parking lot's wide open. There's apparently a little sign I didn't see that says employees only. But it's okay, I pulled in, and nobody was there yet, and I'm getting ready to pull out of the parking lot and go park around the front and wait for them when in comes all the police cars. So I quick throw it and park, and I say, well, I'll just ask them if they want to make a statement. I'm the press now. And the officer was very nervous. Same officer when the building official assaulted me, and he's like, no story. Okay, Jim, no problem. I'm out of here. Well, did you see the sign? No, what sign? Well, the sign says employees only. Hey, no problem. I'm out of here. So he follows me to my car, and he asks me for my ID. Well, hey, you already know I got no wants, no warrants, no nothing. Sure, what the heck? I'll play. So I rolled up the windows, about 103 outside. I locked the door. I left it back about 1/8 of an inch, just enough for him to slide my ID back in. And I got on the phone and I called the mayor and I said, Ed, I think I'm in a pickle. So he says he's not doing anything. He's going to come on over, and he is an employee. He can be in the parking lot, right? So it was a good call to make. So here comes the chief of police, and he knocks on my window. And he says, Mrs. Jones, did he tell you he was writing you a ticket? I said, no. He said, well, he's writing you a ticket. You can't leave. I said, I can't leave, Chief? Am I under? Because as far as I know, either you're under arrest or you're free to go. So I said, well, am I under arrest, Chief? And he says, no. Yes. I said, what am I under arrest for, Chief? And he thinks about it for a second and he says, trespassing. So I called 911. And I said to the nice lady on the phone at dispatch, I said, I'm sitting in the parking lot of Quartzsite Town Hall, and the police chief says I'm under arrest and he wants me to leave my vehicle, but I have a lawsuit against him for harassment. And I don't feel very comfortable stepping out of the vehicle without someone here to witness this. There's a sheriff on the other side of the parking lot who can't see me because he's been blocked by the transit van, and could you just send him over here? I'm totally willing to leave my vehicle, but I just want someone else here. Well, in the meantime, here comes the mayor. So I said, okay, she says she's going to send the sheriff over, and I said, well, the mayor just pulled in. I think I got some witnesses, thank you very much, and I hung up the phone. And I stepped out of my vehicle, and they said, you're under arrest, you know, and I said, okay, but the mayor gets my car keys. Chief says, no, he doesn't. I said, yes, the mayor can have my car keys. And I said, hey, I catch. So I tossed my car keys like a girl, and they landed about 10 feet in front of the mayor. So Ed, not as quick on the draw as I would have liked him to be, goes over to pick up my keys. And the police chief runs across the parking lot and shoves the mayor out of the way. Wow. And grabs my car keys.
Did you get that on film?
No, but the mayor did get arrested for it.
What?
I can't make this stuff up. I mean, to all those conspiracy theory people who are out on the thing saying this is all a fake or a phony, or you couldn't make this stuff up.
The other part of the story, that this was Jade's third arrest since she had actually filed in court for her lawsuit. And I went to the chief and I said, what, are you crazy? Are you trying to give her and her attorneys a field day in the courts? I said, you know, what are you doing? He walked away from me. I told him, Chief, I'm the mayor. You work for me. You know, listen up. And he still walked away. I did call both the insurance company for the town, the attorney, and I called the town attorney, trying to enlist their aid in making him stop doing this, you know. Well, he arrested me the following Tuesday as I was going to council meeting. He likes to do that on the steps. I was arrested on the way into the council meeting. 2 counts of disorderly conduct and 1 count of interfering in police operations. I was arraigned 2 weeks ago.
Now the irony of all this is you remember I was going to cover what sounded drugs. Well, it comes out in the other free newspaper that the former mayor knew it was a heroin bust. Now, that means somebody in the police department's been talking about ongoing investigations with the former mayor. However, I was sitting in the holding cell when they brought the guy in. I was also sitting in the holding cell when they let him out in his street clothes. And it's under my understanding that what may have been the largest drug bust in La Paz County was tossed because the police screwed it up. But they got me. And they got the mayor. So now I'm looking at, I got like, I don't know, 10 silly misdemeanors and 3 trips to the county bed and breakfast, and we're on a first name basis. So of course I deliver my newspaper now to the sheriff's department in the jail. and now if I come back, they actually enough to tell the one jailer not to cut off my wedding ring because I wouldn't be there long enough to, for whatever that's worth, a special privilege, I guess. And then I get 2 zoning citations in the mail on top of everything else. So then we get up to now the police and the department have had enough of this. This has been going on a couple of years, and we got officers, and they're like, I grew up here, I love this community, I'm just trying to do my job, for goodness sakes. I can't even do my job. The police chief's around running, apparently, background checks on people signing petitions to nominate you for office or signing recall petitions. That's probable cause to have everything but colonoscopy. He knows everything about you that, almost that your doctor knows. And so he's running around playing politics, and the officers are getting tired of this. In May, they filed a complaint alleging criminal abuse of the NCIC database and various ethical of the town procedures and policies manual and so on and so forth. They went to their union rep, and the police chief should have been put on administrative leave. Town council says that's not going to happen. He's our buddy. He's doing what we want him to do. And that's pretty clear by the emails between the police chief and the Secretary of State's office and the voting thing and the back and forth. There's enough of a paper trail to prove conspiracy where you normally can't prove conspiracy. So the police chief is still on duty, and he's setting the schedules, and he's making sure the only officers left in the department, the last 4, who didn't complain against him, are the ones on duty at the town council meetings. Well, here comes the union rep all the way from Tucson with some lawyers, and they come to the June 14th council meeting, and they formally ask the police chief to be put on administrative leave as per their own requirements. And the council gets up and walks off the dais and holds an illegal quorum in the next room, on videotape, of course. So the mayor lets this man make his presentation, and then the assistant town manager, who used to be just the building official, snatches the microphone up and said, "This meeting's over, everyone get the heck out." So now a crowd of about 200 and some odd people packed into a room about this size is milling about, and Mike Roth, who now writes for me in a column called The Patriots Corner, is assaulted by a friend of the police chief. She walks up, punches him in the stomach right in front of the chief. He says, hey, I've just been assaulted. And the police chief takes Barbara Bowman and gently escorts her out of the fray. Well, then the mayor that resigned because he owed sales tax to, $140-something thousand worth, I think. But he's the one that ran away like a scared girl. He comes up to Mr. Roth, grabs him from behind by the T-shirt, jerks him backwards, camera's rolling, and Mike turns around and says, "Hey, let go of me." Police chief arrests Mike. That makes it to YouTube. And we're getting 2 hits off of that one. So here comes the meeting on the 28th. And we're all a little nervous. What's going to happen next? I mean, what started out a couple of years ago as fairly boring, ordinary council meetings is turning into like a bad episode of Jerry Springer. and we go to the meeting, and we're all wearing red hats that say, "I support QPOA, Quartzsite Police Officers Association," because those guys are the whistleblowers. They said, we will no longer obey an unlawful order. We've had enough. We got our little red armbands, support QPOA, and one half of the room is wearing red. All the officers, their union reps, that whole thing. And then the police chief supporters have cheap little pieces of blue ribbon tied to their clothing and stuff. So they started calling us the red-headed thugs. They started posting in the local papers, "Oh, you should have seen those red-headed thugs." So now here comes the meeting on the 28th, and I'm wearing my little red hat, and the meeting's going pretty calmly. We're all pretty relieved. Of course, we've got new things in play. All of a sudden, for the first time, they're enforcing the fire code. We're only letting 83 people in tonight. Sorry. Rest of you, police, all you guys off duty, you horrible red-headed thugs, you can all just stay outside. We're not letting you in. And they had stationed one officer at each corner of the crowd. Now, 2 days before this meeting, for the first time in as long as I can remember, they hooked up cameras in town hall to watch the crowd. And, before we could get the audio, and faithfully we would go get the audio off the mic feed, but they never had their own cameras, and the cameras were on us, the audience. And I think that their intention was to catch somebody in the crowd heckling them or something and maybe go write them a ticket. And the whole meeting went really calmly, and I got up to speak. It called to the public, my 4 minutes. Mayor Foster recognized me. And I got up, and I think I spoke about 30 seconds when Councilman Winslow said, point of order, she's breaking our rules, which I wasn't. And they're not his rules anyways. But he said, "I want her removed." And the mayor said, "Joe, you're out of order, something, something. Police grab me." Mayor says, "She has the floor, let go of her." They let go of me. I start to speak again. Council starts yelling, screaming, shrieking. I make a motion. I second that motion. They can't do that. You have to be recognized before you can make a motion, and I was recognized. So I had a death grip on that microphone, and they got some pretty interesting footage as the police physically broke the microphone and pried it out of my hand and put me in some sort of chicken wing police hold and what was the term somebody used? Frog marched me out the door. Now, I didn't think I was getting arrested again. I thought I was just getting removed like a drunk in a bar or something. But they handcuffed me outside and they wrote me a ticket for disorderly conduct and released me to the ambulance, which took me to my arm x-rayed at the emergency room, which I'm now getting the bill for. And that video got put up on YouTube, and I guess Barry saw it, and I sent it out to a few media contacts I'd looked up and things, and tried, and all of a sudden it took off. Daily Paul got a hold of it. They posted it everywhere. It hit everything. And I kind of think, in a weird way, I mean, I came to this town to just run my little business and be left alone like everybody else. And I really didn't want to be some kind of poster child for free speech and, you know, equal treatment and warrantless search and, you know, all this stuff. And all of a sudden now I'm sort of infamous, and I was informed by the CBS News reporter in Yuma that my name is now a known term on the search engine. And I didn't understand how important that was. But now apparently I'm known. So being left alone and minding my own business is apparently not my fate. What I really think is kind of interesting is I had to write about myself in my own newspaper because clearly I was the front page story. And I went back and I watched the video as if I didn't know it was me. You know, in that moment I was thinking to myself, come on, Ed, make them let go of me. And he was trying. He did everything he could, short of, you know, climbing off the podium and physically intervening, but they wouldn't listen to him. And I kept thinking, well, surely they're going to let go of me. Surely somebody's going to stop this. But when I watched the video, as if a stranger watched the video, I realized why it touched something so visceral in everybody. Because I was outraged, and it was me. But I mean, I had to watch it and transcribe it, so I had to watch it over and over and over. And the more I watched it, the angrier I got. And apparently, you know, what's going on in Quartzsite is a metaphor for what's going on in a lot of places. And the only difference is everyone is looking at Quartzsite right now. So right now we're sort of the model for everything wrong with municipal government. And we have this golden opportunity laid at our feet. We can be the model for everything that is right about the citizens taking back their municipal government. And that's why we're so appreciative for all of the people who have supported us, you know. We're so appreciative to Ernie, to Alex Jones, to Judge Napolitano, to all these people who have taken up the cause of quirky little Quartzsite, Arizona, you know, because if Quartzsite fails, so goes the nation. I mean, I really see this and I really believe this is true. You know, they're all looking at us for a happy ending. So before I just had, you know, a couple 100,000 vendors and a couple thousand residents counting on me to stand my ground. And apparently now I have a lot more people than that, and they check in. I mean, somebody told me, you know, take advantage of this. You'll be lucky if this holds the public interest for 3 to 4 days at the most. And here we are. This was June 28th, and we're into August, and people are still joining the supporters of Mayor Ed Foster on Facebook, and I've got 57,000 hits on my blog site, and it's been watched by millions of people around the world, and they're as angry as we were, and it's kind of exciting. I think it's sort of, maybe it's like the second shot heard around the world, because it's like a mini revolution is sort of awakening, and people are saying, hey, this is happening in my town. What can I do about it? And they're looking at Quartzsite to see what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, how we can be successful. So I hope that, you know, you guys will keep pressure on the state attorney general and help us get a quick resolution before somebody seriously gets hurt and bring these people to justice.
Okay, we're going to take some questions. I want to give, yeah, thank you. We'll take some questions. I want to ask a couple of questions. I want to give Ed an opportunity to say those.
Absolutely.
Okay, the first question I have is, at what point were the officers suspended? What's the conditions of that suspension? Are they being paid? Where are they now? Who's supporting them? Is there union attorneys having with it, etc.? So tell me about the officers.
Okay. After the council refused to place the police chief on administrative leave, they conducted a private investigation into why morale was so low in the department. Yeah, and they put him on administrative leave, and they said, look, this big expensive 200 some odd page report we paid for through an attorney here in Phoenix who holds seminars on how to shut up whistleblowers. Look, this report we paid for says that the police chief just needs some sort of, training in, compassion and racial sensitivity, and because we can't actually investigate that NCIC thing. So they put them all on administrative leave for the horrible charge of defaming the town by being whistleblowers and complaining about the police chief. The town manager, because in the meantime now they had a secret meeting. I forgot to tell you about the secret meeting. They had a secret meeting on a Sunday at noon and tried to it tried to abscond with the mayor in a police car. He took his own car, called us. We ran over with our cameras and filmed it as they locked the door and forbid the public to come to this meeting. They declared that an emergency existed because they got thousands of angry emails from people around the world. So they said there were death threats, but nobody any actual pointed death threats to anybody on the council or the police chief. If they exist, we certainly haven't seen them. So they put these police officers on administrative leave. They told them, you don't have the right to remain silent. You don't have the right to have your attorney present. If we want to conduct a polygraph, you have to do it. And the assistant town manager, that guy that used to be just the building inspector, he's going to investigate you. So they fired Linda Conley, the administrator, who was the one in charge of that NCIC database and all the records. Fired the lady in charge of keeping the records safe.
Oh, remember that after she was fired was when the state was coming in to audit those records.
Yeah. A week later, the state was supposed to come in and audit those records. So they placed these police officers on leave, paid administrative leave, just like they should have done to the chief. But they started firing them. They fired the leader of the group, and they fired Linda Conley. For their union for ASCOPs, I guess wasn't getting on the ball quite quick enough. Went on vacation. And so they have had to hire a private attorney out of Phoenix. He filed an injunction, and an injunction was granted against the town on Monday. Said, you have to reinstate these people, and you're ordered to a show cause hearing on the 15th. So apparently Sergeant Ponce went down to find out about being reinstated after he was sure they had been served. And Mr. Johnson, the building inspector / assistant town manager / Little Hitler, says, I don't care about no restraining order. I say you're fired. And I'm going to cut you a final paycheck and let you know when it's ready. So I'm hoping that, or at least we're under the impression that law firm is going to be requesting that they be held in contempt of court. They are ordered into a hearing on the 15th. But we just basically are knocking on every door, every day, in every way. So right now, there's a car wash going on in Quartzsite to raise money for their legal defense fund, and we hope there's a lot of people there right now getting their car washed.
Also, on the website, supporters of Mayor Foster, there's a button where you can click in the PayPal account. They set up a bank account in Yuma.
Yeah, they have a bank account.
There's a corporation involved. They're doing it all legal, but there's an actual legal defense fund being organized.
Yeah, you know what's legal? I give them money.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and
Don't give me hoops to jump through, man.
And in all this, of course, I still have, I'm off work because of my arm. I'm supposed to be off work for another couple weeks. I'm expected without insurance to go have it x-rayed again, which I can't afford. So I did break down. I have a zero balance in my bank account, so I broke down and got a PayPal account and put a donate button on my blog site. And I said, a quarter for Quartzsite, just a quarter. Come on, a quarter or help me buy a bag of dog food. We're feeding 5 rescue dogs on top of our own. So, but we're trying, so I don't know what order. You pick.
Before we get to the question, go ahead and come up here and give your 5-minute say whatever, and then we'll take questions for everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, Ed Foster, the mayor of Quartzsite.
I just want to say one thing. Jennifer and I both have been acclaimed as heroes. You know what a hero is? A hero is a person faced with a circumstance who does the right thing. That's as simple as it is. We're not really heroes. We were just in a circumstance. You know, this thing in Quartzsite, we have to succeed. I mean, no police department in the nation would step forward now because of the publicity we've gotten. If we don't succeed, all of America fails. Nowhere will people step up for corruption.
It's gone already.
No, but we have to succeed here, or people are going to be. I got word yesterday that one of the ladies who was involved in getting government going in Quartzsite, she's been getting calls. People are afraid to go vote in this election on the 30th. They're afraid of retribution in Quartzsite. I mean, this is beyond serious. When that comes to you can't go vote in America, it's really serious. So
When is the election?
the 30th,
Of what?
August. Right, the Saturday is the 27th, that's when the big rally, and then Tuesday is the
Well, we
election.
need to have people stay over and just kind of hang and make sure everything's okay.
Well,
Vote fraud for bill for sale. Learn all about vote fraud right here.
There you go.
Election fraud.
Here, here.
it's just serious out there, folks. We need help from the state, and I'm seeing right now is they're getting ready to do a little slap on the wrist and make it all go away. You know.
All of these police officers didn't get suspended, did they? There's like 10 that had to stay home and 4 that are
Right.
still working, is that?
They, you know, I don't trust the courts, I don't trust the state. The governor's been remiss, she's been hiding out, she's been in her ivory tower. I mean, I went on national radio and said, you know, Quartzsite's burning and Phoenix is fiddling, and it still didn't get any attention, so. You know.
And it doesn't go down
You know.
Hey, let's go ahead and take some questions. We'll start with these two gentlemen. Go ahead. Yeah, do you mind? Go ahead.
Jennifer, I don't know if you understand it or not, but you're the new Aaron Brockovich.
Oh yeah, movie deal.
There was a guy that had a newspaper in Quartzsite before me, Bob Miller, and now he writes a small column for me because of his health. But he actually gave me his archives of like all these newspapers back for like 20 years. So I actually thought about it. If everything else goes to hell, maybe there's a movie or a book deal, and I might be able to quit grooming someday after all.
I gotta say, one of his old papers, he had a little article in there that says, politics in Quartzsite is more entertaining than Saturday Night Wrestling.
Where do they stand on all this?
Well, we have 3,600 people, about 1,300 registered voters. We had a 54% voter turnout the last time, and the town is divided right down the middle because the sort of rhetoric that was being put around before my newspaper started, people thought that things were different. They thought these people were different. And a lot of people that voted to keep them in have actually openly said, I wish I could take my vote back. So I would like to think that maybe we're at the 60-40 point, in actual registered voters, but most people can't vote.
You know, when I got elected, I come in out of the desert. I was one of those winter visitors out in the desert, and I decided to settle in Quartzsite. I come in July to see, I'm going to live there. I'm going to start in July when the weather's like this. So I started in. My buddy said, what are you doing on Tuesday night? There's a council meeting. And I went to a council meeting. And all hell broke loose ever since. But I was an unknown. And Mr. Roth and I got a lot of voters registered. We took it from 1,100 and something to 1,300 voters. And that's why I got elected. I was an unknown, but I went out and did a voter registration drives with Mike, and that changed the mix in the election that I got elected by 338 votes to 311.
And who's up for re-election in this coming election? Who's
The one councilman resigned to run against me in this recall. So,
The recall election against Ed.
right, okay. But what's happened since then? Since Jennifer and all the crap, and the story is that everybody that signed that recall, 250 some signatures between all of the five recalls we did, all of those people were run through that NCIC system. That has pissed people off in the town. Now, have I been run? That's the big question. The other question is, where are the checks? The big issue is money in Quartzsite. How much are you talking about? The We're talking 8 to 10 payroll checks every 2 weeks, 26 times a year, of average of $1,000 is the average check, because you don't know what, even from the old, the checks are a number and an amount, so you don't know which ones are the extra checks. There are 8 to 10 checks extra every 2 weeks. Wow. And the state ombudsman's office is supposed to, by the end of this month, will come out with a report that I actually filed for on April 2nd. So what's that, April, May, June? It takes a while. Anyhow.
It's always the money, man.
When's the last time the town was audited?
Well, you gotta understand, an auditor doesn't care. They do 2 + 2 = 4, and that's fine with them. 10 checks equals $1,000 each. That's 10,000. If that all balances, the books balance. They don't care where the checks go when they audit. They don't. You know, somebody's name's on the check. Joe cashed a check. It's good. They don't look to see why Joe got paid or who Joe is or whatever.
Or if Joe even exists.
Or even Joe. They don't do that. They only look for 2 + 2 = 4. What we're talking about is a forensic audit. That's different than the state audit. We get audited every year, but the state audit just looks 2 + 2 = 4, and books are good, and they disappear.
Okay, do you have any more?
That was my question. How much money approximately?
I was looking at the picture, and there was a guy with your left arm there, kind of like the.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, when you got a uniform, you're undercover law, whatever. I'm not an attorney. If the mayor told him to take his hands off, does that mean he's acting outside of his official capacity from that point on?
I want to answer that. Those 3 officers, the chief and those 2 in that picture, you know, when the officers came forward, I contacted Director Holliday of State Police and sent him a letter under the letterhead of the town under the signature of the mayor, asking that he contact the officers and ASCOT to get the evidence file that they had and to do an investigation of the chief. When this incident happened now 3 weeks later, 4 weeks, whatever it was, I sent an additional letter to Director Holliday asking that he investigate those 3 people for disorderly conduct. Disorderly conduct under state statute is disrupting a public meeting. That surely disrupted the public meeting I was conducting. So.
But it sounds like they're not acting in official capacity, so maybe you can sue them civilly. I'm thinking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking too. I'm thinking.
What about the Tucson certification people? Can they sit there and say the chief and there's evidence?
Well, here's the thing. The police are certified by AZ Post. And up until this spring, they really didn't have the authority to revoke certification. They had a complaint department, but they didn't have any ability to do anything with the complaints, other than take them back to the town manager or whoever the supervisor is of the officers. But there's a new law, and now they can actually, I think it was effective at the 20th of last month or something, can actually take their certification, and we hope that they will.
State your final point. We need to move on.
Somebody to certify is at the Arizona Supreme Court. You should be saying, hey, look at these clowns. They're not fit.
I'm filing a civil rights complaint, and yeah, I know.
One
complaining to the government about the government is kind of a moot point.
How's that working out?
One thing was finding out. If you want to complain to the state government, you can't complain on an email. You got to have their form number 90451 or whatever it is, and you got to fill it out properly, or it's not a complaint. That's what happened with the open meetings law. Everybody was complaining. Well, you didn't. We don't have any complaint. We didn't have it on the right form, so I made a bunch of the forms up. We got them signed at McDonald's, and I carried them down there and had a press conference on the step. They wouldn't come out and talk to me.
That's how it works. Pass.
Have the promised transcripts from the secret meeting that happened on the 10th of last month been ever released?
Partially.
Well, somehow the badge cam of the duty sergeant in the tactical gear, he's, by the way, the same one I've had all these problems with, somehow his badge cam got put on one of the thumb drives that somebody left to have their video audio downloaded on. So we were able to get that. The first 25 minutes isn't on there. So I went down, the town clerk took a whole lot of vacation time after this happened, and she just got back. So I took my thumb drive down yesterday, and I asked specifically for the audio of the meeting. And we don't actually know if it even exists. I guess we'll find out. Of course, filling open records requests hasn't gone too well lately either, according to the ombudsman. So, you can we're trying. The minutes of the meeting were printed and those were released.
Actually,
Finally.
how bad it is, the shredding machine has been working full-time in town hall. The chief of police are in the boondocks out there. We have an IT guy that works around the county. We don't have one in town government. He works here on Wednesday and there on Tuesday. And anyhow, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was at the drug task force office on a day he shouldn't have been there. The chief of police called him, asked, how do I destroy emails? He said, well, you can't do this. He said, well, yeah, but if I want to destroy emails, are they gone? He says, well, not unless you destroy it. He had 2 drug enforcement task force officers from QTD that are now suspended, standing over his shoulder listening on speakerphone when he made these statements. I went right to DPS the next day. I had a meeting. As a matter of fact, it was on your show, I think, and I went right from there over to DPS to report this. And just the attempt to destroy evidence is a crime. But again, they don't care. I swear to God, DPS is. No!
About a cop illegally entering your home along with the animal control in the early part. Was that Quartzsite cop?
Yeah.
Okay, now is that that cop and the 2 that are in that photo escorting you out of the building, or the 3 of those still employed by the town?
Yes.
Are any of the 3 of those suspended right now?
No. They're under investigation by DPS, and according to department policy, whatever, any officer suspected, accused of a crime shall be placed on administrative leave until, paid administrative leave until the investigation is complete.
So the one that illegally entered your home is still good to go, working everything?
Yeah, and I complained to the county sheriff about the animal control, and he said, take a trespassing complaint on a county employee, you have to call his boss, and that was Donna Hale. And I gave her a formal written complaint, listed the violation numbers under state and federal code, and he was never investigated or disciplined. And by the way, Donna Hale is also our elections board officer. Oh, and it gets better too, because the sergeant who led them into my home, he was on duty the night that picture was taken. He's not in the video, he's standing quietly in the corner. But his wife is the magistrate judge, and she's also the grant writer who writes grants for the charities that are owned by the town manager with the contract to the town for the tree planting and the animal control. So welcome to small town government in a nutshell.
Kind of my point. Nick, go ahead.
Hey, you keep talking about how you know how many times your names were run through this database. How do you know that?
Because
part of the sworn testimony of the officers who filed these complaints in our possession, those sworn statements signed. When an officer writes something down and signs it, that is a sworn statement. It's absolute truth. They can be,
under penalty of perjury.
It's under penalty of perjury. When an officer wrote in one statement, talking to a town council member, why is the chief doing this? The chief has been ordered to go get them, in quotation marks, meaning political opponents of the town council. That's how he wrote it in his statement, inside quotation mark. Go get them.
So the sworn testimony of the woman who was fired, who was the evidence technician and administrator for the police department, her sworn statement to DPS was that I was run 109 times in 2 years. In her sworn statement, which has not been made public until the investigation is over, but it does say that she thought something was funny when she was asked her license plate and realized it was her next door neighbor. And she said, well, why are you running my next door neighbor? And they said, because she was seen dropping her dog off at the dog lady's place.
Apparently that's a crime in Quartzsite.
Probable cause in Quartzsite.
This became an issue when we were looking for a place to do the show Monday and Tuesday. Who in their right mind is going to open up their air-conditioned meeting room to allow this debate to go on and still expect not to get ticketed for everything? Okay? So finally it goes back and forth, outs quit it, the manager of this one taco restaurant place, and then the owner's back. Finally the owner comes back and goes, yeah, for $400 you can have 2 days, you can come in there and do what I'm going. Okay, that's like, I'll do it, but you gotta give me a really good reason to do it, you know? So I'm with him, man, right on. But, you know, so we decided not to do that. We're gonna be going to a clubhouse of one of the RV parks there.
Right on Main Street.
Oh, is that where you live there?
Right.
All right. So we're gonna work it out. But the one thing that I did want to ask, there was I kept trying to retain it. It was oh man, it was really important too. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask the question that Ernie asked at the very beginning. Why is this happening? What are they getting out of it besides power?
It's money.
Well, you know, that's what we've been trying to find out. He ran on a platform of trying to figure out where the money was going. And every time we ask questions, trying to figure out what could possibly be behind this. I mean, we're one tank of gas from the Mexican border. Okay, Highway 95 is probably going to run eventually all the way to Canada under NAFTA or something. We got an east-west corridor of Interstate 10, and we have an underground aquifer. There is water there. So whatever they want to do with it, whatever this long-term plan is, Quartzsite is surrounded by BLM land. And within town borders is a patchwork that still belongs to the BLM that's supposed to be going up for sale. And we keep wanting to know, well, what's the plan they know about that they talk about at their not so secret meetings at Councilman Lucason's Eatery? You know, what is it they're really talking about? What is it that they want to do with this piece of real estate that's inconsistent with a couple 100,000 people having a sing-along and selling gems and minerals out of a tent? And you know, why are we inconvenient, and why are they trying to legislate us out of existence? They've changed the zoning. They repealed and replaced the entire business code in the last 10 months. I mean, they have really put the screws to everything to try and make that lifestyle kind of just quietly go away. And so I'm sort of the last thing that's standing between them and
There's one thing I want to point out. My little brother got into politics down in Okaloosa County, Florida, and he found out, he's a mathematician, a scientist, he did some math, and he figured out there was something wrong with the sheriff's budget, and he got involved in it. He did not know that he was having any success. The FBI finally swooped in and arrested the sheriff. Apparently the sheriff had written checks on the public payroll, like Quartzsite, he had county board members on his payroll. Now the beauty of that is, you know, all the illegal drug money and everything that was involved in down there in Florida, the check issue was what works is if I'm the sheriff and I give a county board member a check, we both committed a crime. You're bought and you stay bought now. You know, that's why the check issue I think is so important.
Yes.
There's money from, you know, it's anecdotally that there's pay for play in Quartzsite. You don't get a contract in Quartzsite to do anything without you kick back something. I mean, but that's hard to prove. But the check issue finally I think I found them, and that's why they're just desperate. They're going crazy right now, is because the checks will come out. Eventually they'll come out and they're caught.
Okay, I want to make this clear. A lot of you guys have been activists, you know, in Arizona for a long time. Goonkopf, you know, we've been doing this forever, you know, and you know, Powell's been around for a long time, and a lot of guys from the 90s. This is what I know, okay? They always have a plan. And the individual rights of the people there are not in their plan. You just got to find out what the plan is. So I'm of the opinion that this plan goes back, there's a little flag, little pin, push pin in a map that's big around the planet, and one of those push pins is in Quartzsite.
Yeah.
And the reason it's in Quartzsite is what they've just been saying. There is going to be you can look on these different highways that are coming up through Mexico, going through America and Canada, and one of those fingers that are coming up is going right through Quartzsite. There's a highway, was it 95? That goes straight into Mexico, and they're wide. You ever been up to the one that goes from Wickenburg to Kingman? You know, they're widening this, they're doing them, and all this is all the flow. Quartzsite has water. Oh man, you're out in the middle of the desert, you got water, guess what? You're my new best friend. Okay? To the man. Well, this is known to these people on the county level of this Agenda 21 stuff I keep talking about. And I just really started to become more and more aware of it from people on the left. They're going, look, Ernie, man, this is true. You start, just read this month's magazine, you'll get it. You know, I got plenty of articles in there, and you go, wow. It's not, it's stipulated, it's not a secret. So what's happened is there is a level of government that's betting on the future. And the future is what the future development of this place is over the next decades. And Jennifer and Ed are in their freaking way. You are a hurdle in our way to what we have planned. And if they don't get rid of this, is not going to stop. And the people that they put in place, I don't even think a lot of them even understand. You know, this chief of police in the local town, they don't know. They don't care. They just know they're getting away with it, and they're supported by people up here that use them as insulation. Think about it. When you got a wire, you get a wire, and you have insulation around it. Big 10-gauge wire, and you got insulation and so on. All the business going up and down the wire you don't see. All you see is the insulation. And the insulation on these bureaucrats and the city councilmen and government and league of and all that stuff, every now and then you get a short. Well, we got to bandage up that short, okay? Well, they're the short for the insulation. And they're going to wrap it up because they will not cut the flow. That flow is not going to stop. So if you start going in and trying to cut the flow, you want to see where the real problem is, who really behind it, that's why I advocate. It's so bad, you are not going to fix it. You're going to go in, and people, and I'll say it, just for me saying it's going to cause a bunch of short. I'm going to say, disincorporate. All you got to do is take out a petition, you go out and get this meeting, say, you know what, we're just going to be done with y'all. All of y'all, we're done. We just unincorporate, it's done, you know, divvy up the debt and this and that. Well, you can't because, and you, and whatever, yeah, just done.
Yeah. County's got a lot of debt though, $14 million some odd dollars in debt.
To the city?
No, the county owes money for a court judgment that they haven't paid. And so there's debt everywhere.
Let it go. So let me finish. You start that. All the bad guys will come out in droves, man. They will show their colors. So whether they do it or not, I don't know. But I'm telling you, you are not, because when it goes in the city, you're going to have the sheriff's department out there. When it goes in the sheriff, it's going to be DPS. When you get done with DPS, there's going to be FBI. When you get done with the FBI, there's going to be CIA. You know, I'm telling you, it will not stop. This is my point. So they want to know, Joyce, everybody wants to know why I'm so concerned about Quartzsite. Only as much as that it is such a perfect example of what's happening at every level across the entire country. And the more you resist, the more you're going to come up against what's really happening. So I want to help you guys keep it in the press, keep it going. We're doing a good job of fanning the flame. But don't ever think that I'm on the side of fixing it, because then that presumes that I think it can be fixed.
It's broken. It's broken.
You know what? You're good at this, but we got to give Mr. Winslow a lot of credit.
Oh yeah. I was a big guy, 20.
Yeah. Hey, and Councilman Winslow was actually caught on the mic last year. They didn't know the microphones were on before the gal started. And this was between the election, the primary where we knew Ed was in the final two, and the actual election where he got elected. And I got the audio, and it was myself, former Mayor Oldham, Ed Foster, Mike Roth, and a guy named Dean Taylor, who's kind of the sort of de facto head of the Citizens Coalition for Responsible Government. The five of us were sitting in the room, and we caught Councilman Winslow on the microphone say, I think if we get all five of them in the front row, we just machine gun them. And Councilman Lucasen says, damn fine idea. So we started calling him Machine Gun Joe, and he's not real fond of that either. But what's really scary, and this is really kind of, maybe if you had to say what's the $1 million question, when the badge cam from Sergeant Frausto is panning through that secret meeting, you see him set a cell phone on this barricade between where the people sit and where the council sits. They put up a barricade. And on the edge of the barricade, you see he goes to set up a cell phone that's on speakerphone, and he drops it. He has to bend over and pick it up. And you see him set it back up there again. Then his badge cam pans over later in the video, and you see there's two cell phones. So the thing that scared me the most is not the morons running our town or the people at the lower level pulling the strings. What I'm concerned about is who are those two people listening to that secret meeting where they declared an emergency existed? Who are those people? Why did they care that got passed. And why they show this? Who are those two people whose cell phones are sitting there on speakerphone, and what do the police know about it because they're the ones that set the cell phones there?
Okay, we'll get Gutenkauf. Real quick before I forget, and then we'll get Gutenkauf. The money that you gave into the hat is for us to do it because I can. I go to McDonald's. But I'm not there. Clear room, okay? Your money's well spent. But the thing is that we still have an opportunity, and Karen's offered to take the money. Now you go over here as you're leaving today. You want to give some money for the officers. I'm sure you can. She'll give it to whoever she wants to give it. She thinks it's a good thing to give to, because I don't fill out forms. But go ahead and give it to Karen, and she'll accumulate and take care of it. And this will be a donation for the legal defense fund for the officers. Okay.
For Jennifer. Donations for Jennifer is what I see.
Oh, Jennifer. Give Jennifer.
Donations for Jennifer.
Which will promote the officers. I don't care.
The dogs appreciate knowing those.
Someone else can do the police.
All right, cool. That's a good idea, because a lot of times when people, you get noticed for standing up because everybody else is on their knees. Okay? And when they stand up, you think that this does, and a lot of us have personal experience from this. When you stand up, you don't get paid for that. It costs money. It costs money in filing. It costs money in gas. Pardon me?
Freedom isn't free.
No, it's not. So, yeah, that'd be, good thing, help Jennifer out. I'm not even, and I owe you guys for breakfast anyway, so you get a dip out of the hat anyway.
And it's $839 to print my newspaper, and I'm out of work right now, so that would be actually, freedom isn't free, but the Desert Press is.
Go ahead, we'll do some
Isn't it true that under Title IX of Arizona Revised Statutes, that one of the powers of the city council is to regulate the police?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, and you've seen how they regulate them.
Right. And so I want to make sure.
In Quartzsite, the police and the town manager regulate the council.
Well, this is the issue that I came in conflict with my civil RICO action against the Tempe Town Council and the Tempe Police for this photo perjury for
I've
profit.
tried that, and I'll tell you what, putting a complaint into the federal government is even a deeper, darker black hole.
It is.
You never know whether it worked or not.
It
Go
is.
there, they meet you in the lobby, they take your information, and they disappear and you never hear from them.
That's true, but I want to recommend a book that really concisely lays this whole problem out, and it's a book by Judge Andrew Napolitano, and it's called Constitutional Chaos When the Government Breaks Its Own Laws. It deals with the photo radar stuff that's going on, but it deals with the criminal stuff that went on at Waco, at Ruby Ridge, all this stuff, and he offers some solutions at the end of the book. It's a very good read, so I want to suggest that you look at that.
Thank you very much. One thing I learned about my decade in fighting with local legislation for dog owners is that once a bad law is on the books, it's on the books. You can't get it off the books unless you can afford to file a lawsuit to get it off the books. So we have to be really careful who we allow to make laws. I mean, at the end, be proactive, not reactive. It's cheaper that way.
And I want to agree with Ernie on one thing.
Yeah, get rid of the government. You don't have any laws.
Natural law.
Ernie has said many times before, I don't care what some guy in a black robe says, what the judge says. The whole point is when you file the suit, you get the criminality as a matter of public record. That's the important thing. When you get their own records, you make it public, people will start to understand and they'll start to get
one thing.
Okay, 5 minutes. We got
one last point. The Oath Keepers have came in and are representing Jennifer and I separately because she's got lawsuit issues and I'm the mayor and I can't be part of her lawsuit against the town. But my attorney has hit the record of the town council. And the second meeting that I had at the town council, I was elected and got to adjourn the meeting on the one meeting after they took away all my powers. In between that time, I went to the town manager and asked for some reports on what's going on. And at the very next meeting of the town council, the first one where I had the gavel in my hand for the whole meeting, they passed an ordinance saying that elected officials cannot ask for reports without permission of the council. Now wait, but my attorney went about this, he looked at state statute, that is secreting public records by design. That's a class 4 felony. He informed them by letter last week that he intends to charge them unless they rescind that order. They haven't in this meeting. So they are now going to be charged with a class 4 felony by design of secreting records.
And win or lose, I got, the lawsuit will go on the record, and I've been willing to stand up and let them charge me now with, I think, 14 different misdemeanors and zoning things, and I'm representing myself in all of these criminal charges. Mr. Rhodes is going to help me when this is over get my piece of the pie back for what I'm spending right now. But I've been telling people, go ahead and let them cite you. They have to make their case in court. Let them prove, beyond a reasonable doubt, or if it's in a civil claim beyond the preponderance of evidence, that they can do what they can do. I mean, because otherwise it's just going to keep happening. So if you don't document it, you don't film it, you don't create the paper trail, you don't get the minutes of the meeting, it's a ponderous pile of paperwork, but if you do it, you'll be vindicated in the end.
Don't take the plea.
I don't take the plea.
What are you going to do to assure there's no election fraud?
I don't think anybody can ever assure that.
By design in Arizona, with the early voting thing that we have legislated in, that's by design a method of voter fraud. I mean, these people.
Does the city count them, or does La Paz County count?
La Paz County Council, but what happens is there's, Quartzsite's a city of old folks. I mean, before the current census, we were the oldest community and the oldest county in the nation. Average age was 67.3 years old. And there's a lot of old folks there that these people know, and they go to their home, can we help you, Martha, fill out your ballot? And they get a whole stack of these ballots. And it's legal. That's legal.
We watched him walk up at the last election, and at 2 minutes to closing at the polling, they had a stack of ballots that they just walked up and handed in to be counted later. So, which explains why all of the opposition candidates lost by about 60 votes across the board, or at least that's what I speculate.
Oh, it's not speculation.
My lawyer says I gotta say I speculate, right? I gotta be careful.
Thank you, Ed Foster, Mayor, and. Hey, now Frank wants to give out some winners here real quick.
All right. Call my number, Frank. Come on.
2567. 2567. Got one over here. First chance, the book's back in the corner. Second choice. 2551. Over here is another one. Oh, we're up in the corner again. Second chance down there in the corner. Third chance. 2594. 2594. Got one down here? Okay. We have fun today? Yeah. See you guys the first Saturday of next month.
Yes. How you doing?
Down there.